well, welcome. It's great to see a turnout here tonight. I know the weather's not cooperating real well. Jan and I were just talking that it was, what, 82 or something yesterday, and now we're seeing some sleet coming. So, welcome to Kansas, right? I appreciate Barb asking us to get involved here. I've been kind of working a little bit with North Salina over the last couple of years, and it's been a real pleasure to get to work with the group a lot more intimately on this project. And this was kind of a deal that really kind of came out of nowhere. I don't remember if it was Barb or Greg, one of the two, that kind of caught wind of this program. And so they inquired with me about what the possibilities were for a community the size of North Salina. Obviously, if we were to take on the whole city of Salina, that might be a different ballgame, but North Salina neighborhood is something that, after talking with Jan, that we felt real comfortable being able to tackle. The interesting thing about what we did here, and I'm gonna leave it up to Jan to present you all the results, but I just want to give you a real brief background about this, how this came to be. The First Impressions program is really just a community assessment program. It helps a group, it helps city government, it helps all of the different stakeholders out there, NGOs, nonprofits, you name it, just get a better handle on what they've got going on in the community. Because if you're like me, I hate to use the word complacent, but sometimes we can pass by things so many times during a year, during a lifespan, that we just kind of forget it's there, or we tend to ignore it. And over time, unfortunately, things maybe deteriorate, get worse, and again, we don't really notice it because we see it every day. What the First Impressions Community Assessment Program is it's kind of a secret shopper program that normally would match up a community that requests the program to be done with another like-sized community. And so you would get, a half a dozen stakeholders or volunteers from the requesting community, the same number from that other community, and you'd kind of do a swap. And those folks would come and basically do a secret shopper type visit to the community. You wouldn't know they're here, they wouldn't necessarily stand out, and then they get to report what they very anonymously but very transparently saw, felt, inquired about. And that can go anywhere from customer service to infrastructure to business to religion and everything in between. And Jan's going to talk more about that here in a minute. We did a little bit something a little different with this one because time was a little bit of the essence. And so to try to pair up with another community that was not only like North Salina, but the size of North Salina, was kind of a little bit of a difficult task. And so we changed the rules a little bit. And what we ended up doing was we engaged 6 of our extension professionals from K-State Research and Extension, and we invited them to be the secret shoppers. Now, I don't know if Jan will talk about this, but we don't just do that and say, hey, go to North Salina and take a look around. We try real hard. Jan does a really nice job of giving some background of the community. And then also, these are all community development professionals. That's what they do in their daily lives at work. But Jan holds a little bit of a training that tells them, all right, this is what we would really like you to hone in on and pay attention to. And North Salina had a few interesting components that they wanted us to look at, some of the gateway corridors that come into the community, as well as a few other things that weren't normally on the radar for our First Impressions program. But we had 6 very, very good secret shoppers that provided a lot of really good data. And the nice thing about the First Impressions program, again, Jan will talk about this, is we obviously want to hear about the good. We want to celebrate what we're doing right. But the real purpose of the First Impressions program is to find out maybe some of the things we aren't doing so good at, and maybe some of the things that we need to focus more attention or resources to. And so why this is important for the North Salina Community Group is, if you haven't heard, they've been doing a lot of great things, and those are reflected here. But they also had a few things that they had already picked up on that maybe they wanted some reinforcement from that unbiased third party to really elevate those various projects, bring more attention to it, and say that, hey, our visitors to North Salina are noticing this as we are. We'd really like some action to be done on this. And so ultimately what we hope happens from this is not only to make all of you aware of it, but then take some actionable steps afterwards and get somewhat of a strategic plan to try to address some of these projects, albeit we also want to keep doing the things we're doing well. And hopefully chart kind of a path forward to focus some of these and bring even more improvements to the North Salina region. So with that, Jan's got a lot of slides to cover. And the nice thing about this is that this is a very informal process. And so if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask them. One thing we're asking of you, though, is as you sat down, hopefully you have a goldenrod colored sheet. You've also got a beautiful brochure from the North Salina Community Group so you can learn a little bit more about them. We would really appreciate if you'd take some time this evening as Jan's going through his presentation and fill out that one page that has, I think there's maybe 8 or 9 questions on there about some of the priorities that you're picking up on, some of the assets, how well maybe your awareness was raised tonight about some of the things. And then just as importantly at the very bottom, if you feel strongly about some of this stuff and want to get involved, let us know how you might want to get involved. And we're asking you to do this just as a survey participant, so no names are required. But especially on that bottom question, if you would like to get involved and none of your stuff up above is too hard, be sure to put your name on it. We'll try to reach out to you on that. The reason we do this is A, to gather some feedback on our program so that we can make it stronger and better for the next community, but then also to have you reflect on what you hopefully learned tonight and provide some feedback to the group, because that's what they're wanting is community stakeholder input. Then also on the back, there's a demographic form. Again, all of this is totally voluntary, but with K-State Research and Extension being a partially federally funded organization, we really like to find out who we're reaching with our programs. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the data on you as an individual, we would really appreciate that so that we can report that then to our funders and our folks up the chain that saying, hey, we're making some great impacts, most specifically here in North Salina. So if you can, fill those out tonight as you go along. Jan's also going to have some QR codes in the slide presentation that if you want to use your phone, you can do it electronically. I'm not a digital person, but feel free to do that. And then just on your way out, you can grab a cookie and leave that sheet on the back table. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, so without further ado, Mr. Jan Steen is a community vitality specialist with K-State Research and Extension. He is part of our Manhattan campus, but actually lives in big old Arlington. And Jan's kind of been the guru as far as community assessment goes. He spends a majority of his time with the Kansas Community Empowerment Program. Some of you may know that formally as the Kansas Pride Program, which is an excellent community improvement program. But he also works with our First Impressions program, not only in Kansas, but we learned tonight that in Nebraska and soon to be maybe South Dakota. So he's done a lot of traveling. And he also works with a program that's actually similar to this, but it's for the youth. And we've talked about that. It's called Youth Community Perceptions. And that's a really, really cool program too. But I won't delay him anymore. Jan, it's all yours.
All right. I'm gonna get situated here. Hold on a second. Sorry for any bumps. Might happen. All right, how's that sound? Pretty good?
Yep.
All right, so this QR code is actually the demographic collection form, as well as if you'd rather use it in the paper. I'll leave that up here for just a few seconds. As Cade said, this is a little bit like a secret shopper program, and we train visitors who come to your community to look at it through the eyes of a potential resident, a potential business owner, or a potential tourist. And so when we do that training, we ask them to look at many varied areas of the community, from the housing to the retail, to the parks, churches, and civic opportunities, among others. And we'll see those results tonight. I do want to go back here, though, since we have the Hansen logo at the very bottom there. The Dane G. Hansen Foundation supports our community development extension programming in the northwest part of the state. And they actually piloted that First Impressions program in 2015 and rolled it out to the rest of the state. So we're thankful for that. We've only adapted it minorly since then. I think we added a section to find out how much money people were spending when they came to town on their visits to kind of give an impression of what retail is experiencing when people come to the area. All right, so as Cade said, feel free if you have questions as we're going through here to raise your hand or speak up. I will say that Cade and I are the messenger. These are compiled reports of the 6 visitors that came to town. So if there's something that you don't agree with or something you have questions about, why did they see something that way, go ahead and ask what was the situation they were in. Is that perception valid? This is the process. Salina and Northtown came to us and said we'd like to do first impressions, and we went ahead and trained those 6 visitors in October of 23, and they came here in November and December. We took pictures of what they observed in November and December, and we're presenting the results tonight. And then it is up to you to decide how you use those results moving forward. It'll help you evaluate your successes, maybe find some opportunities for improvement. And the area that we worked with for census data, we do have census data in this report. Our census tracts 1.01, which is the closest to downtown, 1.02, and then north of that, census tract 2. It's a little hard to see up there, but those are the census maps. Now, when I presented census data before to some communities, they say, that really doesn't reflect what we see here locally. And that's understandable. You probably know your community better than somebody in Washington, D.C. But this is public-facing data. So the reason we presented is to let you know if somebody is writing a business plan to bring a business here, they're going to be pulling data off the Census Department website. If they're looking to bring some sort of industry here, they're going to be looking at that data to find out what the age of the workforce is, what the education of the workforce is, maybe what the housing availability is. So that's why we present this. All right. Now, they did not have census tract data for these 3 tracts, but back in 2010 that was consistent. So we had to go from 2020 to the 2022 data, which the 2022 data is an estimate, but I wanted to put it up there again because it's public facing. They said this section of town had a population of 7,154 in 2020, and there was about an 8.37% drop is estimated 2022, 6,555. For Census Tract 01, 39,000 median household income. There was not median household income data available for 02, but for Census Tract 2, 29,000. Pretty much the same high school or equivalent diploma across the board for those 3 tracts. At least a bachelor's degree or higher was 30% in 01, 21% in 02, and 14% in 2. Median age, about the same in 01 and 2, but 1.02 is about 44 for the median age. And persons over 65, 25% in 1.02, and the others are about 18 or 19%. Poverty rate in Census Tract 101 is 17.7%, 48% in 1.02, and 38.1% in Census Tract 2. And then we have the demographics there of the population. I will note that this will be online tomorrow, so you'll be able to go back and look at these numbers a little bit closer if you would like. Okay, so before anybody gets in their car and comes to Northtown, we ask them to look at the online presence. Tell us what you found. Was it easy to find, first of all, in a search? Was the information accurate? Was the site easy to navigate? Just tell us what you see and what your experience was. They said the North Salina community website was a bit dated and had no recent meeting minutes. They said it looked like 2018 was the last time the meeting minutes were updated. They did say that the list of businesses was helpful, but not really overly useful due to the age of the information. The website was easy to find for most using their favorite search engine. It was also easy to navigate. Others said they could not find a website dedicated to this part of town. They did say the site looked to be under construction in certain parts, and there was not a working link to any available real estate or rentals if somebody was interested in moving to this part of town. They did say on the Greater Salina Community Foundation Match Madness page that there were some great pictures of this part of town that would really benefit being on the Northtown website. One visitor said they used the Chamber of Commerce and City of Salina website to try to find more information about Northtown. They said the Chamber page was really helpful, though not really aesthetically pleasing. The ability to pull up a map with locations and resources was really nice. Some visitors looked up Salina on TripAdvisor to see what there was to do. in this part of town, but nothing was really listed in the area. It was all outside of Northtown. One recommendation for the website visitors had was, and social media, was to occasionally feature maybe a business or an organization, so people can learn more about those. For social media, they did find the Facebook page. They said it had more current information than the website. It showed community spirit. They said, nice job keeping the community members informed of local events. And whoever handles the social media, they said, great job answering the positive and the negative comments tactfully and telling people why things were done the way they were. They said that was great engagement that you have there. They also said the Facebook page was really good at acknowledging volunteers and community members' contributions to projects that were going on here. All right, next thing we ask visitors to do, now get in your car. Now drive here and spend some time driving in and out of the major entrances and exits. It's probably going to take a little more than 5 minutes for a community this size, but that's what we call it, the 5-minute impression. Tell us what you see. Tell us what you feel when you drive through the neighborhoods and drive in and out of those exits. They said one of the first things they saw were dated motels, storage units, and truck stops coming from the north. They said it all seemed really fairly industrial without a real neighborhood center observed. Residents seemed to be mostly low income, well-maintained residences, and they noticed that there was a Department of Transportation building. They said coming in from the neat shops and local eateries of downtown, this part of town gives a feel of a kind of a much older, much more industrial area. And despite that industrial feel though, visitors said that they felt it seemed quiet and peaceful even on a weekday. Visitors could see the banners on the light poles while driving north on 9th Street, and they appreciated those. One visitor wondered what the story was with the RV encampment. When they were coming off the interstate, they said there was no signage for it to really say what it was. And they said the first truck stop was well manicured. Most of the businesses in that area looked welcoming. There was the Welcome to Salina sign, and then there was a giant field of cars, used cars. They said this is really a unique mix of industrial and residential. And they said the industrial businesses look to be primarily supply focused. A lot of homes with chain link fences right up to the street. A lot of businesses with chain link fences and concertina wire, which gave visitors a feel that they really didn't want to get out and walk around in the neighborhood. The Salina Northtown decals on the mailboxes were nice to see. They noticed some were green and yellow, and some were pink and blue, and they wondered what the difference was between the colors, but they really liked those. They said that indicated that there was community spirit. And coming in from the east off of I-70, one visitor did not realize that there was a museum until they were right on it, taking the ramp there. So they said maybe some additional signage in advance might help. Speaking of signage, the Salina Northtown signage was visible and inviting. Again, that shows a sense of community spirit as well. There were bikes noted next to one of the convenience stores, and they found out later that that was a Pathways to a Healthy Kansas grant project. And some visitors felt there was good signage directing people to parks and museums. The area coming off of 9th Street was older, didn't have much in the way of recently built homes or structures. A few fast food options existed in the area off I-70. They said there were some repurposed buildings, like a hotel is now being used as a church, for example. And some closed down businesses, which gave the impression that some of the area is not really thriving. They said the park by the river on the north side seemed to be nice during the drive-through. Along with the Welcome to Salina sign, the bridges with the unique lights were interesting as people were coming in on I-70 at the Ohio exit. The landscaping company off of Broadway, Old Highway 40, the trees really set off that area really nice. Gave a nice tidy appearance to the entrance. The fields leading up to Broadway and Ohio were taken care of and appealing, very clear signage coming up to that intersection. They mentioned the field of used cars again. There was an odd house. They didn't indicate exactly where that was, but probably in that same area. And then coming off of I-79th Street, it's hard to tell if the Comfort Inn is open or closed because the property right there, the grass is really overgrown. Whether that's Comfort Inn's property or not, it kind of gives the impression that maybe it's not, the hotel is not open. And I will note here, there is a lot of text in these slides. Typically, when you're watching a PowerPoint presentation, you don't want to have a lot of text in the slides, but we are going to upload these later, just so people have the context when they come across the presentation. They'll be able to see what's going on. Okay, so east of 9th, the Marifa Inn looks like they are trying really hard to keep that going and get that up to speed, but it isn't clear if the gas pumps and other services are really open there. They said that was a little confusing. The Church of Christ campus was observed nearby. It might help to put some signs on the ball field to show that Kansas Wesleyan is affiliated with that and that the university is in town. And signage for the levee trail system, they said that didn't exist. They did notice it on a map, but they couldn't see any signage indicating that the trail system was there. They said highlighting the trail along with Thomas Park right away might be a good idea. For visitors, families were observed enjoying Thomas Park, and that gave them a welcoming feeling to the neighborhood. They did say very few signs leading up to 9th Street would encourage anyone to stop for more than gas or food. They said as they were driving, a lot of other towns had billboards on I-70 indicating exits and attractions and things that would draw people in, but they didn't see any really for this part of town. Next, we asked them about the businesses they encountered. What's the retail area look like? They said liquor stores, there was a closed daycare center, a few churches were observed by some, but not really a well-defined retail area. Some scattered stores here and there, not really many places to eat lunch. One visitor said the All-Star convenience store had candy bars for $3. I don't know if they, it might be a little high for a candy bar, but that's what they found. Most buildings could use a coat of paint, and their signage was minimal. You really had to look to find what some of the businesses were. Again, an All-Star convenience store, they said you could find pretty much anything you would consider a convenience store would have. Most businesses in this area were commercial or service instead of retail. Car dealers, appliance stores, or repair, trucks, industrial type businesses that would service that sector. There were quite a few drive-in and privately owned hotels and motels, some with better repair than others. But they did say it was nice to see that there were still some of these types of buildings operational, in use, because in a lot of communities, those types of properties go into disrepair. For grocery and food access, some felt there were really no grocery or food access options in the neighborhood. Others felt Pump Mart seemed to be the only store in the area that carried a few basic staples. Though it was a fairly small store, it was noted that the Salvation Army offers commodities. AJ Honey Farms shop sells honey, so they indicated that as a place to buy food products. They said it was noticeable, very noticeable with the bright yellow store. They said the parking lot was a bit awkward to get to, but once they got there, it was great and had a wide variety of products. And some noted that the DG market in the area would probably be in this part of town. Others just saw restaurants and convenience stores. The customer service at All-Star Convenience Store made some people feel uncomfortable. Pump Mart staff greeted visitors upon entering, and staff gave recommendations for places to eat in downtown, but nothing in Northtown. Multiple praises for AJ Honey Farms again. They said they were incredibly friendly and welcoming. Plenty of information was shared about their products and the operation, and visitors were given plenty of time and space to explore the store. And they learned that the honey farm had been there for about a year, and the parking issue was explained to them that the street was closed about 10 years ago, and that's why you have to kind of drive around to get to that parking lot. Other areas coming from the interstate, the cashiers and store clerks were very friendly at the truck stops. They said their friendliness gave them a feeling of safety and comfort for those not familiar with the area. Some were greeted by every business they went into and never had to ask for help, so good customer service for the most part. We asked about public amenities. If you're going to come into a community and you're going to spend some time here, maybe you'd like a bathroom, maybe you'd like to have some Wi-Fi access if maybe your cell carrier isn't as strong down here as it is where you're from. So we asked them to talk about the things they saw. They said restrooms and trash bins were available at the convenience stores. Some public restrooms were seen in the park, but the park's restrooms were closed for the winter. Some benches were around, mostly near bus stops. They said there were a lot of bus stops, but they were all very well marked. They said picnic tables were also seen in some areas, no public Wi-Fi access that they could tell. Towards the Starbond district, there were a number of benches and trash cans and some random benches on the corner. And the parks all had trash bins, but none on the streets really, except for in the Starbond area. For parking, landscaping, and streetscaping, some parking was tight. The All-Star convenience store was noted that because of some large vehicles, it was difficult to find parking there. Others felt parking was pretty easy to access elsewhere. Not really an area of town that you would park and be able to walk to a lot of other locations. So if you were parking for one place, you would probably get in your car and drive to the next place you wanted to stop. It was noted again that the AJ Honey Farm parking was difficult, not the parking lot itself, but finding out how to access it. Handicap parking was readily available at different stores, and parking at DG Market was ample, and the lot was in good condition. Streets looked clean and well maintained. Not much in the way of landscaping, but they did realize that they were here in November and December, so there may not have been some of the landscaping that was here in the spring. They did say that the 5-corner intersection was very nicely landscaped. Because they're here, we asked them to tell us about the industrial parks and commercial areas. Normally, if you're going to be bringing some sort of manufacturing business to town, you're going to go to the Kansas Department of Commerce Location 1 service and find that. But again, since people were here already, we said, what do you see? And they said the northeast and east sides of town looked to have room for some manufacturing industries to locate or expand. Most everything that was not residential seemed to be industrial or commercial. Some business sites were for sale or for rent, and being close to other businesses might be beneficial, but it doesn't really give a community feel. They did say there were several open spaces with real estate signs noted in industrial areas coming into town, and the areas by the railroad tracks seemed to be particularly industrial and older, though there were some new buildings scattered throughout. And part of the industrial area visited is an economic opportunity zone, so it's considered economically depressed, and they were wondering if some of those new buildings, new businesses were because of that economic opportunity zone. One visitor's takeaway was there's no delineation really between industrial and manufacturing and residential areas. Virtually everywhere there was an elevator or a business or a warehouse and then a home. We really are in need of a lot of homes in Kansas, so they just said that the pairing seemed a little confusing. And one of the biggest highlights in the area is really some of the unique and interesting business opportunities. Understanding the history of each building and using it to tell the Salina story might help bring businesses and customers in. For healthcare services, they said really no hospitals or emergency services in this part of town. However, it's not very far from here to the nearest hospital. There was an addiction rehab center that was observed, and they said it appeared to be well kept and in a nice neighborhood. Most felt there were no healthcare providers in this part of town, no pharmacies or other services, though one dentist was noted by some visitors and the Salina Regional Health Center near Lakewood Park. They'd also said the Saline County Health Department was close by at the county government buildings. Some felt in their tour around town that there were no long-term care or assisted living type facilities here, but others noted they saw 2 such facilities, both of which looked to be well cared for and well populated. They even mentioned that they would feel comfortable with their parents living in one of those facilities if they were in town. And next we're on to housing. One visitor noted there were 3 small homes for sale during their visit. One was for sale by a real estate agent, and the other 2 were for sale by owner. Another visitor saw 5 signs when they were in town, but it was unclear if it was the land next to the property that was for sale or the actual house and the land for sale. I guess just the way the sign was positioned. And finding acceptable housing, they thought, in this area might be a challenge. Only 3 properties were seen online. For those checking realtor.com, roughly 36 properties were identified for sale in Northtown, ranging from $50,000 to $350,000. 26 of those properties were under $100,000, mostly low to mid-income, housing observed, and for the most part they were kept up fairly well. Some could use a fresh coat of paint or some landscaping, but not much really stood out as abandoned or condemned. The west side of Northtown had the most rundown homes, but that improved as you went east. Housing looked to be fairly affordable for new home buyers or for those looking for investment properties. Visitors wondered if there wasn't a code or enforcement of existing codes to ensure property owners cleared junk from their yards. They said some properties were doing a really good job trying to keep their yards and their homes clean, and then you would go down the street and there would be a house with junk in the yard, which would decrease the value of the other homes in the neighborhood. Many of the homes appeared to be 1 to 2 bedroom. Some built very close together depending on the neighborhood. There was a neighborhood revitalization map from the city services office. It doesn't have a legend, they said, but on it, it appears that there were several neighborhoods that were in the neighborhood revitalization area, meaning they could receive tax abatements or improvements to those properties. And newer homes were observed to the east near Marymount. Now for rental properties, some were listed on apartments.com and had rental amounts of $800 or more. Visitors said they found 4 properties online which ranged from $750 to $1,330, which seems about average for whole house rental rates. Some multifamily properties were observed, but really no for rent signs were seen. And a relatively new multifamily complex was seen on 9th Street, but not many options other than that. The Zillow link on the Imagine Salina website indicated only 6 rental properties available at the time. And the smaller properties that appear to be rentals give the impression that the landlords were not maintaining them very well. Okay, now we have some housing data here for the 3 census tracts. So, number of houses, census tract 101, 1,482. These are housing units, so it could be apartments as well. 102 was 1,291, and 2 was 1,099. Occupied housing units, pretty close to what the housing availability is. Most of the homes in this part of town are renter occupied. 57.8% of the available homes, housing units are renter occupied in 1.01, 71.7% are renter occupied in 1.02, and 55% in 2, and the median gross rent is about $730, $740 to $800. Average travel time to work, between 14 and 16 minutes in this part of town. So really the people who live here work here as well. These next 2 statistics are kind of interesting. If you have a business and you're trying to get word out about some new hours, new products, maybe an event you're having, or if you are working for the city and you're trying to get the word out about a road closure or a boil water advisory or something like that. Households without a computer, this includes desktops, laptops, tablets, or smartphones. You have 85 households in 01, 220 households in 02, and 78 households in Census Tract 2 that do not have a computer. And households in those tracts without internet access at all is 184, 390, and 272. It doesn't mean that they don't get their information somewhere. They might go to the library, might get it at work or at school, but those are households without access to internet within the house. And if you need any resources on housing, grants, other tools for homeowners and renters, also resources to address homelessness, the Kansas Housing Corporation has information that may be of interest to you. Our next section is about schools. They said St. John's Military School Academy was seen in this part of town, and other visitors noted that they knew it closed in 2019, but the signs are still there pointing to its location. So perhaps those could be removed. And maybe if that facility is still there but not being used, it could be turned into a shopping area or a site for incubator businesses. Just some ideas from the visitors. And while they felt that St. John's was the only school in this part of town, others noted 2 older brick schools on Iron Street. Still others noted a middle school and an elementary school they considered to be in the neighborhood on the east side. And one visitor felt there was a high school. The school district offices were located in Northtown, and the buildings and grounds all seemed to be well cared for. There was also a Seventh-day Adventist school identified. For finding information online about the schools and the quality of education, some indicated they could not find any information about the quality of education available in this part of the city. Others said it was easy to find information about the district in general, however. The state of Kansas does have some accountability reports at datacentral.ksde.org that indicates Oakdale is rated a little lower than the state average in math, ELA, and science, and Lakewood also rates below the state average in those areas. But if you're with the school district at all, or somebody from the school district is going to see this, one way that you can communicate information about the community is, of course, through the school website. And this is a good way to tell your story about the community. People shop as they're looking for places to move, if they're changing jobs and looking for a new city. Sometimes they look at the school websites to find out about the education. And it's the parents and the kids that see sites like this that say, why us? Why would you want to come here to go to school? For childcare, some visitors noted they found one operational childcare center and one closed facility. Sweet Little Academy childcare facility was on the northwest side of the community. It looked well maintained, had a nice playground in back, but no information about the facility was found online, so they really couldn't tell about availability or pricing. Some felt there was no other childcare option available, while others noted 2 facilities listed online and a third one seen in person on the very south end of this part of town. Several in-home daycares were noted. Google Maps, though, was not helpful in finding these. And the average childcare base rates were found online for Salina. Now, we don't have city data yet specifically in the state. We do have county-level data. And for Saline County, the extent the desired capacity of childcare availability is meeting the need is about 59%. And how they figure this is they look at all of the children 5 and under in the county, and they look at their households and determine whether all parents or guardians in that household work outside of the home. They take that population number and they compare it to the amount of desired capacity available at the child care centers, and then they determine what percentage is being met. Estimated. You could have your kids with a neighbor, you could have your kids with the grandparents or a family member. That's just an estimate. So, for faith and religion, they said they saw 4 churches while exploring this part of town, one of which was the Salvation Army building. Methodist, Seventh-day Adventist, and a Hispanic church were noted. Some visitors noted a church that used to be a motel near the interstate, and visitors felt they'd be able to find a place to worship if they were in this part of town. Other than St. Francis Ministries, though, we asked what kind of faith-based community services are offered here. That is, are there churches offering clothes closets, food banks, financial classes in the evenings, childcare? They said St. Francis Ministry focused on foster care, adoption, and family support. Other than that, they really didn't see any faith-based community services offered by the churches here. For civic organizations, they said it was hard to tell if the Masonic Lodge was active or closed down, and they said the American Legion building had the windows boarded up, so they weren't sure if it was active. They're probably not. There was an Eagles Club building noted slightly outside of North Town, but they said it's a good example of some of the buildings in the area that could be helped with a fresh coat of paint and a little maintenance. No other evidence of civic organizations were found in this part of town. They did say, though, most did not see evidence of activities in this part of town, but they did say that there were some parts of the North Town website that did seem like there was quite a bit of activity in the civic and community areas of this part of town. One visitor noted because of the cars and the people around the Salvation Army and St. Francis Ministries that counted as evidence of work happening in the civic arena. No organizations serving seniors were found, but a visitor noted that they wondered if St. Francis could assist with older adults' needs. Okay, public infrastructure. So Northtown signs along 9th Street were nice, but other than that, there really wasn't anything to indicate that this was a different community. They said it's too bad the welcome signage doesn't extend up to the interstate. Northtown signage did indicate that people were working together. The streets were mostly well cared for and in good repair. Several streets in the area were not paved. And they said keep the brick streets if possible. That gave character to some of those neighborhoods. And it might be difficult to maintain, but they said it really does make a difference. Bike lanes and signs are a bonus. Some of the bike lanes appear to be on busier roads, so it feels like they might be unsafe to ride on, such as Highway 40. There appears to be land available for wide sidewalks in the future, should that be an option for the community. Sidewalks, they said, were in fairly good shape. Some were a little rough, but most were okay. And additional notes about businesses, buildings, and signage. They said it was really hard to tell, again, some of those buildings, if they were closed or operational, maybe what was even in them, due to the signage or building not being in physically good shape. Some buildings were in good repair, others were questionable on whether they were in use at all. For City Hall, so this visit was conducted on Veterans Day for one visitor, and they said it was closed. Others felt that the city county government buildings would not technically be in Northtown, so they didn't attempt to visit. but they did acknowledge that they were close by. One visitor did go to the city offices and found a helpful kiosk with locations of offices. There wasn't a clear place to go with questions or get information from a person, as most of the office doors were closed. They said there were some brochures on the walls outside of the office doors. Maybe the culture there is to have the information available so people don't have to come in. The vehicle registration office, tag office, they said was the busiest. There was a lot of laughter coming from that office, so it made the space feel welcoming. And another visitor encountered helpful, friendly staff at the city offices. Fire and EMS and police services, we ask this information because if you're close to these services, your business or your home could have different insurance rates or not, depending on how far away you are. Some saw no evidence of police or fire stations or vehicles during their visit. Others indicated online searches showed one fire department here, with others being south of the neighborhood. The fire department was found in person by others and seemed to be quaint and well kept. Some visitors saw a patrol car making rounds and an ambulance driving through. Visitors wondered if the train tracks that divided Northtown from the rest of the city caused any problems with emergency service response coming in from the south. And if so, would that access affect insurance rates? Some felt the Saline County Sheriff and Salina Police Department were just right inside of Northtown. Several law offices were in the general vicinity of the municipal court building, and the police station and jail were older looking but well cared for. For the library, no main library or branches in this part of town. Though the Salina Public Library is not very far away, they did say there were a number of little libraries available as they were traveling around town, and they said those were typically at the bus stops, co-located there. City parks, one of the city parks with a playground also had bicycles to rent. There was a bike lane on Ohio Street noticed while driving in from I-70, and there was a community playground associated with the Salvation Army across the street over there. Some noticed ballparks near the schools, others didn't really see any ballparks. Lakewood Park was visited by some. They walked the trails and noted the trails were fairly well maintained and had good signage and trail maps were visible. They said some of the sign holders were broken and on the ground. A number of people observed others walking the trails and even fishing in the park, and there was a nice disc golf course there. They said the Lakewood Discovery Center was a real gem in this part of town. Great interactive educational displays. Some visitors spent time just sitting at the windows watching the leaves fall while they were there. They said this is a place that some visitors indicated that they would purposely travel back to Salina for. It was a highlight of some of the trips. Thomas Park was noted to be a fun place and a good location for picnics or just to get out of the city for a while. The neighborhood parks were well cared for. There were a number of them. The parks were the best parts of many of the neighborhoods. They noted the Levee walking trail again, and Hawthorne Park looked like a nice place for kids to visit and spend some time. Is Northtown Salina well known for an attraction or event? Some visitors did not notice an attraction or specific event in Northtown. Others noted that this is becoming kind of an art area with its murals and growing art presence. They said the murals were an enjoyable part of the visit. The website and social media for Northtown showed that there are a number of activities available in the community. It would be nice to attend the mayor's tree lighting and holiday parade. They said they saw signs for that all over Northtown while they were here. They also said there were many signs for Streets of Bethlehem seen. Any natural or man-made features that might bring people in for recreation and tourism opportunities. Some felt not really much. Others, again, said the public art would bring people back to this area. The mural on the elevator is breathtaking. If there was a way to continue this on other elevators and buildings, that would be helpful. And also, again, Lakewood Park and Lakewood Discovery Center. Any natural or man-made features that could draw people in. It's a great opportunity, exists in the neighborhood around the train depot, they thought. Maybe shops on the corners combined with the green space and the charming depot could be leveraged in a rail-to-trail park. The homes in this section of town are really charming, and the brick streets give a lot of character. They did say yesteryear and the Scouting Museum could be a draw. It was closed during one visit despite the sign saying it should have been open, but it's not easy to find as there is minimal signage directing people there. No real obvious visitor center if somebody was coming to this part of town. But one visitor did go check out the chamber office and the Visit Salina building. Both were closed when they were on their visit. They did like the Salina imprint on the sidewalk by the CVB building. The Economic Development Office near downtown could serve the needs of visitors in the area, but there were no signs encouraging people to stop there for information. So what restaurants and shops would bring you back to this part of town? We asked the visitors that, and they said some felt there were really no restaurants really in this part of town that would bring them back. They did note that there was a Dairy Queen that they saw. Others had a good breakfast at the Sale Barn and a good lunch at Chuck's Bar, and would definitely return for those. One visitor said that after years of coming to Salina, they really didn't even know Chuck's was here. They'd never been to Chuck's. They said the staff was fantastic. The only criticism was the local beer on tap was from El Dorado and not from Salina. What's the deal with that? They need to have a local beer. They said AJ Honey Farms, they would come back to that for sure, and the Lakewood Discovery Center. For entertainment opportunities, nothing really stood out for some visitors. Some noted that there was live music at the bars and some outdoor activities at the parks. Online, there was reference to a community barbecue. There are a couple of museums and historic sites, including the Salina Historic Railroad Station. Some felt the alley might fall into this part of town boundaries, and that would be something for people to do. They said, though, if you're a young professional or a family, there's not really much here for you. Okay, most positive observations. Salina North Town signage. The number of homes were decorated for the fall. They said there were quite a few of those. The people were friendly. For an industrial commercial area, the neighborhoods were well kept. The Lakewood Discovery Center, it was easy to get around this part of town. Large industrial businesses that could help with the development of this part of the city. The presence and support of the Salvation Army and St. Francis Ministries is commendable, and the parks are great. Your kids must really love accessing them and spending time here. Additional positive observations, people were out walking around and utilizing public transportation. It's nice to see people walking through their neighborhoods on weekdays. There are pockets of investment and redevelopment, lots of unique business locations or opportunities for business locations with some of the existing buildings that are here. The brick streets do everything you can to keep them. They make such a difference in the appearance of the neighborhood in a positive way. The bus stops were well positioned throughout and appear to be well utilized. And the Dairy Queen is adorable. It seems like an older building and probably has a great history. So the biggest obstacles and challenges for Northtown. No grocery store really within walking distance. Many homes had no trespassing signs, which didn't promote a neighborly environment. Customer service was uncomfortable at the All-Star convenience store. Some visitors did not encounter people outdoors on a nice day. The commercial industrial feel of the area and the lack of a community center. No real destination catch for visitors or residents alike. Unless someone has business with one of the industrial companies here, there's really no reason to stop, especially with downtown not that far away. It's a huge missed opportunity being just off the interstate. Not much to do here other than get a burger or gas. They wondered if there was a clear goal for the community. Are you trying to make it a destination place, create a nice residential area, and build on services for those who live here? Whatever your plans are, it will take strategic planning. The lack of a pharmacy or grocery store for the majority of this part of town is an opportunity to look at for improvement. The housing stock and condition of some of the housing, many parts look run down and impoverished. The abandoned and empty industrial buildings. The condition of rail-owned property around the rail sites. There's a lot of material scattered around in piles right in the middle of areas that would otherwise be prime for development. And one of the biggest obstacles is to build up enthusiasm and interest in the area. It has potential, but will take an active community group to make it happen. So what will you remember? 6 months from now, if somebody said, what do you think about Northtown Salina? They're going to remember the signage. They're going to remember the all-star convenience store experience. They're going to remember the AJ Honey Farms and the Lakewood Discovery Center, the friendliness of the people they encountered, that there's interest in making change, and it will be exciting to see how the area evolves over time. They're going to remember Chuck's. More places like Chuck's and AJ Honey Farms would make a visitor destination of the area. Potential around Park Street and the depot and the rundown neighborhoods that need some help. And visitors individually spend anywhere from $2.94, probably for a candy bar, to $175 in Northtown, and collectively they spent $480.94 in this part of town. So they're not here, but we usually thank the visiting team for taking the time to come here. And next steps, Cade will be your primary contact, but if you have any questions about the report itself or you have trouble accessing it, you can reach out to me. And as Cade said, on the back of that sheet, you have the short-term evaluation survey that has those questions, maybe some things you learned, and maybe some ideas that you might have. We also have that online QR code, so feel free to take that. I've got that up here. I'll show you some of the resources we have through Extension here in just a second, but any comments or questions or observations that you might have about the results?
Did any of the visiting team notice the new jail and sheriff's office on the north part of town on Pacific Avenue? Did they know that at all?
I don't believe so.
Gotcha.
That doesn't ring a bell. I don't remember seeing that in the compiled reports.
Got it, okay.
Probably the used car lot caught their eye.
Probably before the new jail did, yeah.
We'll say that a lot of communities that have signage like you do, the drivers don't see it, but the passengers do. But in this case, a lot of the drivers saw the signage. So it's good sized signage, good sized lettering on your Wayfinder signage here in this neighborhood.
Can you share where the secret people came from?
Okay, let's see if I can remember this. Kansas City area,
Yep.
Manhattan, Wichita, Hutchinson,
Two from
Hutchinson. Combination of those.
Did you say Manhattan?
Manhattan, yeah. Combination of all those locations.
If there's an idea for like a business or non-profit organization on that, or who do I contact?
So if you have a business idea for this area,
Yeah,
who do you contact? I don't know, that's a good question. Somebody wants to maybe look into a facility or has a business idea.
Most of the time, they would be steered towards economic development. The Salina Chamber, they've got various resources there. There is and somebody's gonna have to help me out with this. There's an active program in the community. It's an entrepreneurship, isn't that right? Challenge or something like that. That goes
Startup
on.
Salina.
Yeah, Spark, yeah.
That's through the economic development
Okay.
office. I think they meet at 10.
But you mentioned a nonprofit too, right, as a possibility?
yeah.
Yeah, so let me touch on that here in just a second as some of the resources that we have. So Cade mentioned the Kansas Community Empowerment Program. We served 86 communities last year. We have grants available through that program. If you already have a group, you already do have a group that meets and is doing good things here. You can just overlay what we have over the top of what you're doing already. We have grants available, we have recognition awards, we have materials on how to write grants, how to attract and keep volunteers, and we have connections to our partners at the Kansas Department of Commerce. The Kansas Masons are our partner. They gave us $1.2 million over the last 6 or 7 years to help expand the capacity of the program. The Davey Hansen Foundation we collaborate with, League of Kansas Municipalities, Kansas Association of Counties. So we work with quite a few entities there if you're interested in that. We've served neighborhoods in Wichita all the way down to unincorporated areas across the state. We do have that Youth Community Perceptions, which uses middle school and high school age youth in your community to identify things that they feel are important. It's a little bit like First Impressions. They go through the community. Nadine helped me and Jamie developed this. We all kind of sat down and wrote this together. And it gives communities insight on what the young people feel about things in their area, and gives them an opportunity to have a voice in their community, and gives them an opportunity to be involved in the civic process. Because ultimately, they will give a presentation to the city council on their findings, and then the city council can work with that group of youth to identify potential grants or other resources to address some of the needs that they have. We found through research that if young people are involved in their community and they feel like they've had a voice and listened to and have made a difference in their community, they tend to come back to that community. or they tend to be involved in the community that they do end up moving to later when they're an adult. They also, through that same research, have found that vandalism tends to go down when young people are involved in picking projects and developing projects in the community, because they don't want to tear up things they spent time developing, and their friends don't want to tear up things that their friends took time to develop. That's something that we could work with if you're interested. Cade and I can work on that with you. We do have grant writing classes and support. So these grant writing classes, I think you've had one here, $60 for 2 days worth of several hours worth of grant training. That says $28 million. I know it's hard to see up there. We're actually up to $42 million of successful grants written by participants of that class. We do have small business, wait, let me go back here one more time. We do have other services available. Number 5, I'm going to go down to. We will read your grant proposals if we have enough time. If the grant deadline's tomorrow and you send us your grant proposal, we won't read it. But if you have a few weeks before the grant proposal is due, one of the services we offer is to read through that grant proposal to see if it's something that looks strong, or maybe if there's an area or two that you can improve upon. We also do grant searches. It's something that we rolled out in 2022 as a pilot, and then last year we kind of did it for all communities and organizations in the state. If you're a nonprofit, if you're a city, if you're a fire department, any government entity, any church, any business, there are not a lot of business grants, but we will search for businesses, any city government entity. We will do grant searches for you for free. So far we have $1.5 million worth of successful grants written from that, from about 150 grant searches. So just reach out to us and we will do that search for you. If you're wanting to build an entrepreneurial type community, we have support for entrepreneurs through our First Friday e-calls. This will be online tomorrow, so you can click the link again. We do offer remote work training, so if you have good internet access here in this part of town and you're wanting people to have opportunities to work for companies other than maybe some of the ones that are based here, we do have remote work training and remote work manager training available. And if food access is an issue, we do have resources through the Kansas Healthy Foods Initiative and the Rural Grocery Initiative. Grants in some cases, but also resources and guidance in that area. So now is your turn from this point forward to decide, what did you hear? What is it that you're going to work on? And try to keep those conversations on what you could do or what you should do, not why can't we do something. If you focus on the reasons you can't do it, then your conversation's not going to go very far. If you focus on what you'd like to do or what you think you should be doing, then you can start bringing in partners and other resources to fill those gaps that you might not have availability for here. All right, and that's it.
Well, thanks, Jan. I know several of you have to probably be going. I heard some 7:30 departure times, but I want to thank again the North Salina group for initiating this process. It was important to them to get that third-party feedback and get this report compiled. And as Jan said, we'll be posting this. We've got the Community Vitality website through KSRE that it will go on. But I will also have a link on our local website for our Central Kansas District, and then we're going to share that with Barb and the group so that then they can disseminate that through Facebook or wherever they want to get that out to the citizenry up here in this part of Salina. This is only a small piece of the process. I think for a lot of communities, this is a great starting point. My personal feelings are for North Salina, we had a starting point well before this, and that's with that group. Obviously, they're a small group, but a mighty group. They've got a lot of good things going, but hopefully through some recognition of some of the things that were brought up in this report and raising some awareness of some of these things up the food chain, if you will, perhaps they can get even bigger things going. The First Impressions program, in my opinion, is an investment of time, not only by the volunteers, but by the group themselves, because they had to plan all this out. Sometimes, unfortunately, though, I see it stop here. I've been a part of some groups that they get the report, they read it, oh yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking and what we needed, but then they don't ever do anything with it. Maybe they take out some of the low-hanging fruit or the small things that are easy to accomplish, but It's just that, those are the easy things to accomplish. Some of these things are the much harder, long-term type deals, and the fact of the matter is, some of these things are gonna take a larger scale effort than what the community group can handle. It's gonna take local government, it's gonna take community buy-in, it's gonna take a substantial amount of funding in some cases, and so I would say that if nothing else, those two questions up there, what did you hear? I would really like for all of you to reflect on that, maybe not tonight, but if you can, provide the feedback you can on the sheet, but think about that over the the coming weeks and months, and pay attention to what the community group is getting done, and offer that support, offer that help, and, you know, try to get the ball rolling and get some bigger things going. And then definitely on the what will we do, that's conversations that obviously they're gonna have as they start to take on some of these projects, but I would encourage you with whatever networks that you have to also talk about what can you do to support the things that are going on up here. Salina's a large community, obviously. If you look at it from the north end to the south and east to west, it's a large community. And granted, this is only one of the many neighborhoods in Salina, but to the people that live here, it's important. And I think we need to recognize that and try to assist those folks the best that we can. Obviously, we can be a small piece of that pie, and we intend to stay engaged with the North Salina group. Most specifically, you know, Jan showed those slides on internet connectivity, technology usage in homes. I was not aware of those statistics before tonight. I kind of had a feeling that's what it was, but I didn't realize they were that low. Randy, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag a little bit. He's not supposed to hear this till our next board meeting, but we in the Central Kansas District has been asked as one of 3 local extension units to pilot a program called Digital Ambassadors. And when that was pitched to me, my immediate thought went to, and I hadn't even, obviously we hadn't had this presentation yet, but my immediate thoughts went to North Salina. And so we're going to try to work with North Salina Community Group a little bit here over the next couple of years, if they will have us, to do some digital ambassadorship, working with getting folks connected to broadband, getting folks trained up on some of the online capabilities, whether it be the remote work, whether it be online resumes and job interviews, telehealth, and everything in between. It's going to be a series of public classes that we can hold to get people in, possibly older folks as well as young folks, just to get them more up to speed. We take for granted these things right here. I mean, everybody knows how to finagle it and work with it, but there's a vast amount of people out there that don't. And that's one of those skills that, you know, the younger ages have kind of grown up with, but there's a lot of folks that are working age and older that don't have a clue, and we want to try to help them out. The long-term goal of that is to get better broadband access and better internet connectivity to certain parts of the region. And like I said, Northtown is one of those that's kind of on my radar as trying to do that with. So that's going to be kind of one of my involvements here. And what can I do? Well, I think we can maybe make a little bit of headway with the digital technology that's happening up here in North Salina. But again, I would just encourage you to go back with whatever agency or entity that you're representing tonight. Have some of these conversations. Again, these will all be posted online so that you can access those wherever. So, yeah.
I have a question. One of the things that I was thinking about when you were doing all your things is what I heard was that the opportunity of all the cars on I-70, we aren't doing a good enough job drawing down into the community, whether they stay in Northtown or go deeper. That's what I heard, that there's not enough to help them navigate through and have maybe positive experiences as much as we need to. Although I know there's been a lot of work done on 9th Street, and that they said the housing looked really nice. I think that had a lot to do with some of the work that's been done here, but it just seemed like that's one of the opportunities that as local government we could think of it in a broader way, not just North community trying to help themselves, but that we're not drawing them into our community. I-70 is, one of the biggest highways United States, and we're not doing a good job in having that be really inviting. That's what I heard from your session. Is that what you guys heard?
I think that's fair.
I would like to see our corridor coming off of I-70 more welcome. I know we have the trees planted in the middle as far as landscaping, but I know Barb and the Northtown group have planted a lot of trees, the flowering trees along Ninth Street and along with Evergy, you know. But I think we could do something to pull them on in a little bit further, you know? I think that needs to be looked at. And a lot of those trees are, some of those trees are dead and dying, some of them's already died and nothing's been replaced, they're just, you know, spaced out and stuff, but I don't know, Thomas Park, that's a nice little park, that disc golf thing, you know, that area there, it's really pretty back in there. You can take a walk and stuff, but, the park needs light, you know, playground equipment, it's awful dark there.
I agree, they were, and not even marking the levee trail, so that was even marked as an opportunity for people staying the evening. Like, I realize, you know, we know it's there, the locals, but you're talking about visitors, which is a totally different situation. And that's really a beautiful thing.
Well, and you'd be amazed at the trails, the biking paths, the disc golf. You know, those aren't the world that I live in, but it's amazing how much draw there is to some of the things. Case in point, our office is out on the K-State Salina campus, and as I was pulling out yesterday, there were three, please take this with a grain of salt, older gentlemen that were pulling their carts with the disc, and I'm like, well, I see nobody but students out here, and then here's these three guys that I know don't work out there, and they don't go to school out there. I'm like, wow. And so I know there's a whole arena around disc golf now. My brother-in-law's in Emporia, and that's like the mecca for disc golf
They
apparently,
have
so.
a huge tournament here now. It's actually, you go through those, watch them, there's people playing all the time on these courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just those little things that, again, we may not play those things or do those things, but they are a big consumer type deal nowadays. And so there's what do you call them, rails to trails system, that there's quite a few of those going in around the state, and those are attractions. I mean, those will bring people to town. So.
And that Union Station, Union Pacific Depot on Bishop Street, that building has so much potential.
It's awesome.
It's so sad to see it all boarded up and.
Is it empty?
No,
It's
railroad's still using it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're still
They got it
using.
all, they got the windows all boarded up and
Did you know that? Have you seen that lately?
it's sad.
That whole little area though could be, it has potential to be a really cool
Yeah.
little retail area that could really bring in there's possibilities.
And it once was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boy,
it
was
just
happy.
seems like it's just sleeping.
It'd be really cool to bring downtown up there and then hang a left.
I would agree.
and
Something
go right
fun to
down
go
Bishop.
there. Yeah, something different.
Got that little old gas station on the corner with Carrier and.
Something that wasn't noted that, like, talk a lot about Dairy Queen,
Yeah.
something been on my vision for a long time is the old gas station on the corner, north of Dairy Queen. I'd really push to get that renovated, and,
We
you know, they talk about
volunteered
coats of
painting.
paint.
Yeah, we volunteered to
You
do
go
that.
paint it?
Yeah, we'll go paint it.
Yeah.
There's something out this weekend.
Yeah, there is, but it's
It's,
It's in place.
taken a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all probably a little biased. I mean, I'm not a native Salinan, but I grew up here my whole life, and so it's easy for me to say this, but like, I know every community in Kansas has history, but Salina, to me, is extremely unique with the diversity of history that we've got here, and what better thing to play on than that, and even just the little gas stations. I mean, you've got the big elevators and the flour milling history and all that, but it takes everything to come together, and so there is a lot of opportunity, I believe. A lot of projects. Barb, any final thoughts or directions from your standpoint?
we just need to
figure out some priorities and maybe collaborate with the city and the departments as to what, my thing is I'd like to see, it really resonated, welcome to Salina, and then you see all the junk cars.
Right.
That I think is a real eyesore. And we spent a lot of time cleaning out stuff. We worked on front porches all along North 9th Street. And North Salina is the front porch to Salina. And so if we can figure out a way, I like the ideas of, visitor center or something where there's, something stands out. Right now, it's just, I'll just pass through to get downtown. So I'm looking to see how we can collaborate to do more as what's, and as volunteers, we need some help.
Well, I think it would be really cool, it's a lofty goal, but that's what a lot of this is talking about is, we all know that the majority of the development in Salina is going on at the south end, but it would be really cool, in my opinion, for people that are coming down I-70, rather than them shooting for 81 to get to south, that we draw them off before and get them to come down through here rather than go around. And so we'd have to kind of just decide, all right, what is it that's gonna draw people off the interstate before they get to the next interstate to go around us, so.
I mean, we've had traffic, I remember we had changing from 4 lanes, basically just 2 lanes of parking. The city, started that to slow the traffic down, to what did I say, calm it down, to help maybe in that respect, people aren't just speeding through. And that seems to help a little bit, allows parking for people on 9th Street, so not, some still do park in the front yards. And that's the thing, is taking pride in what the people that are on that North 9th Street corridor, as they come down, you come down and look at that, and there's a couple of houses that, code enforcement needs to look at. And so it's just some of those odds and ends, that when you visually see it, it's not like, for lack of a
It
better
takes
term.
too long for it to be enforced. I live in a really old neighborhood, it just takes way too long for it to have any impact on these houses that are falling to pieces.
Kind of comment back
That
here.
actually kind of dovetails on the point that I was gonna make, that Kenny's Auto Body, the cars there in the edge of town, the county line, they straddle the county line, so it's actually permissible in some form. Code enforcement might make an impact, but North Salina has been effective in actually working with the property owners from a pride perspective. Code, as it relates to those cars in particular, code enforcement might move them around, but it's not gonna change the use of that property. If there's a way for this group to implore that property owner to understand the impact on the neighborhood, that's probably gonna be more effective than code enforcement.
Could they put up a fence around part of it or something like that?
He could, I don't know that we can make him, you could try to talk him into it.
Try to keep a good relationship if you're asking that. I had a community in western Kansas that had a bunch of cars out there like that, and it kind of made the guy who owned the yard mad. He said, "Oh, I'll put up a fence, all right." So he stacked the cars up as a fence and used the cars as the fence.
What
instead.
about the
So-
EPA involved?
What's that?
The EPA, I wonder.
I don't know, but speaking of that though, brownfields, you've heard of the brownfields program, used to clean up properties that had chemical spills and oil spills and things like that. Now they're doing dilapidated buildings. It doesn't have to have a chemical spill so you could use brownfields dollars for, instead of just environmental cleanup, for structural cleanup now too. So.
Well, it's just kind of sad, we got the $90 million jail across the street, I mean, it looks nice, they've got it landscaped and everything, it looks really nice, and right across the street's the junkyard.
Well, is it really zoned as a salvage or is it zoned as a used car lot? I mean, the car lot has different stipulations.
Right, from the city's perspective, I think we could make him move across the city limits line, but my understanding is that he's allowed to do that in the county. We've been through that, the whole drill before, and code enforcement, we're lucky if we get minimal compliance,
Yeah.
but it's just a continual dance versus trying to appeal to them in terms of the impacts on the neighborhood from a property owner perspective.
Just as an outsider perspective, where I live in Osborne, I used to work with Jan some on the First Impressions program, and listening to the report tonight, there's a lot of things where, man, I didn't realize they were available here in North Salina, the different parks and things. And so as I think about all the hotels and things that have been built out there along the 9th Street exit, there really needs to be a lot more promotion and signage, because when those people come in, they want to do something, whether it's just get out and walk their dog or whatever, but knowing where those amenities are around the area really could make a big difference. And then I'd also like to commend North Salina for the efforts that they've done in the last 6 to 8 years, because the difference of just when you come off of Interstate and drive on down 9th Street, it looks so much more attractive than what it did previously.
I agree.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, one of the things I heard is that we might not be doing a very good job telling our story online as a whole community. And, you know, if you're in a hotel, you would,
You're gonna
maybe look it
on
up online, but we've got several organizations that are doing good jobs. But like TripAdvisor, if they're not telling the story accurately, and other groups like that, I don't know if we could find a way that some organization could be responsible for making sure that the community story is told in all these sites in a collaborative way that tells the narrative that we want to tell for the community and includes all the segments. I think that'd be useful.
Well, hopefully, like I said, there's the brochures on the chairs. I'd encourage you to take one. Barb's trying to get rid of them anyway. Make sure you keep their contact information, and if you have thoughts or ideas here in the near future, be sure and pass those along to them, and hopefully that'll maybe spark some various projects from that standpoint. And again, if you would, the golden sheets, if you can, just provide a few comments or just mark some boxes. Any input's valuable to us. We'll compile all those, and I'll get that information back to the community group, and so that way they have that archive and they can work from that as well. But again, we appreciate your attendance tonight. We know the weather's not the nicest out there, but for you to come out and want to learn something that they're finding out through these reports, or if you've got some input down the road, all of that is valuable to us. So with that, I guess if there's nothing else, we'll consider it adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.